Hi, it's Damo here. This episode contains discussions around borderline personality disorder, self-harm and suicide, so do go carefully. Hello and welcome to episode 70 of I'm Fine, a chat between myself, Damo, and Mark. Hi.
Hi.
Someone who I've witnessed this week trying to connect a Bluetooth speaker using only the power of his mind.
Yeah, and my foot.
It's a chat around the subjects of health, wealth, well-being, fitness, form and chaos, substance and oblivion, light and dark, and all the infinite variations of yin and yang. 100 points for anyone who knows where that came from. We're all work in progress, and this podcast is no exception. In short, it's a poke at our perfectly imperfect lives. And if we can make just one person feel like they're not alone in all this madness, then our work here is done. Make sure you subscribe to us in your podcast app and follow us on the socials by searching for I'm Finecast. And please do drop us an email at imfinecast@gmail.com. So, coming up, welcome to part 2 in our 3-part mini-series on borderline personality disorder, where we're taking a deep dive on this very misunderstood and under-researched mental health condition. Now, I was going to say, actually, I took it out, I was going to say underfunded, but you could almost say that any disease, any illness, any condition are largely underfunded.
But it is disproportionately in terms of the number of people that
Right. I mean, I didn't have that to hand, but I just thought of it. It's like any healthcare system, anything like that. There's no amount of money that will ever be enough. Yeah. The NHS could never be overfunded.
No. But, so, I mean, in America, it's literally, we mentioned before, BPD has more people with it than bipolar and schizophrenia put together, but its funding is like a couple of % of what they receive. Okay,
so it would have been probably a correct statement.
Yeah,
I
totally
I didn't want to back it up.
Way off the scale.
Okay. Yeah. In this episode, we'll be looking in more detail at childhood trauma, favourite person, splitting, triggers, episodes, a couple of things I really don't know what they're about. So before we get into it, I just wanted to say how proud I was of the last episode. A couple of reasons.
Okay.
Firstly, I don't want to get too soppy here, Mark, as I don't want tears on the equipment. Salt water and electronics don't mix.
No.
But just say I'm very proud of you for sharing your diagnosis on here.
Thank you.
And you've shared much on this pod. We're just talking about that, how much we actually have shared.
Yes.
So, I'm totally aware of how difficult that was for you to do and for us to do that episode. So I really appreciate that. We've already alluded to it, so it probably wasn't much of a surprise in terms of...
It's the best kept secret. And you're going... We've had 70 episodes and you've told us about paranoia, ranking coffee cups.
Yeah. I doubt, forgetting stuff, hanging your coat up in the litter tray.
Yeah. Obsessive behaviour. Addiction for decades.
I mean, people probably didn't go, oh, that's classic BPD, because as we've discovered, not many people have heard
they'll
of
be
it.
able to in future.
But now they might go, okay, that all makes sense.
Yeah.
So big props to you for doing that.
Thank you.
And I think to do that here with me means a lot to me personally, knowing how difficult it was for you. And I think you kind of did it quite nonchalantly, and I kind of... But secondly, I'm really proud of the episode.
Yes,
I know you are too.
I am.
And I don't think we could have done a better job on such a difficult topic, to be honest.
It's never going to be easy to do, and we had a really quick turnaround. You were having to edit it in 24 hours or whatever, and there's a couple of things that I asked you to take out. We only really get one go at this, don't we? And we are trying to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was proud of the first.
I think we were really anxious, but I'm certainly super happy with what we've done. And I think it's been well received. And I think judging by the record-breaking first day figures, I think it must have resonated or been doing the rounds, or people have been telling people, which has been wonderful.
I think it's the people in Bolton, because my first little line here was the biggest vote of thanks to the Bolton Massive.
There you go. Thank you, Bolton.
The community people up in Bolton, I think, who I put in here, you know who you are. I always think it's funny when you have like BAFTAs and someone goes up and I'd just like to thank everyone who's been involved with this. And they name 4 people. And there's 8 who are totally fucked off, isn't there?
They've got a massive piece of paper and they just say 4 people.
Yeah. Or the worst thing is they say 27 people and there's 2 they've missed out.
Yeah, you can't win.
Yeah, and then you go, and everyone else. And if you're one of the everyone else's...
Yes, there's people going, I'm one of the everyone else.
Just say my name. However, so I'm going to actually go against that. I just wanted to say, I mean, firstly, thank you for what you just said. Appreciate it. But what I've written down here is that the feedback I've had, and I realise that people are DMing me rather than going to the email, which I can understand why.
Yeah, sure.
But the feedback, the messages, the time people have taken to contact me has been truly moving, like honestly moving.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go all through the names, but just a few people. Dean, Remy, Chelsea and Darcy, your texts have been so moving, and a special mention today for Beck, who wrote something really beautiful about me and sent to Amelia, and taking the time then to contact me was just, I don't know, it almost feels that first episode in a way has achieved what we wanted to achieve, which was engagement to get people listening.
Yeah.
And I don't think people have been polite. A couple of people have gone, I can't wait for episode 2. And it hasn't been platitudes.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to know more.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, it has been great. I felt,
That's
but
good.
someone in need of validation every second of my life, it does help my mental health.
Good. The floor is yours.
One of the things, and we're going to come on a little bit later on to talk about the therapy that I'm having at the moment, which is dialectic behavioural therapy. And one of the things about that DBT is around balance. And I think that's what I want to do today, is to have a balance between the scientific data and research so that we actually have a factual base. But the feedback I've had seems to be very positive on the anecdotal examples. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting people, and I mean, obviously, Lewis is constantly in our thoughts and in my thoughts. And, you know, you've heard a lot from me and become, you know, almost got to know him by one removed sort of thing. And a lot of people, or a number of people, have come back and said to me, that's what Lewis said. That's what Lewis did. He used those words. He listened to that music. And I think I want to just sort of grab those anecdotal examples, not to go, this is all about me and this is all the things I do. But if you're in contact with people with BPD, it helps you deal with that because we're hard to live with. And if you are someone that has BPD, maybe understanding that other people share your characteristics can be reassuring in a way, to know that you're not alone in all this. Yeah. First one, we looked at sort of general traits. I sort of wanted to dig a little bit deeper now and look about how different things are manifested. Important that people can recognize them and help to reduce the impact, both for the person on the receiving end and the individual themselves in terms of self-management. Mm-hmm. So the only last thing I want to say as well, and I mentioned this about just using first name terms and anonymous, some of the things I'm going to say today are from other people that have shared with me or that I've known, and I've taken some stuff from some forums in the last couple of days. So there are some direct quotes. And if it is something that I'm experiencing, I will say that. I think it's important that I explain that this is something, and it might not be that everyone feels the same on this, but it's just from a personal point. The other thing I wanted to say was there was two things. We laugh quite a lot, and I'm listening to that BPD, and we smile. You can hear us smile and laughing. And you actually said there might be some laughs on this, and I think it is worth having that balance. I was thinking sometimes when you watch Channel 4 and you see a documentary on Tourette's, and there's that sort of humour within it, that doesn't take away the sympathy or the empathy for that person, but it means that, you know, life isn't just all, you know, sullen and sad.
Well, we've talked about comedy in a few pods, haven't we? Has come out of awkward and traumatic experiences and moments. It's a natural reflex of ours. Coping mechanism.
Like at funerals sometimes.
We can't be apologetic about it.
No.
It just eases the difficulty, doesn't it?
Certainly. I've heard the word dysphoria, which I'd never heard before. And for those of you that haven't listened to or are new to this pod, we tend to put a lot of emphasis on vocabulary and words that we find interesting. So dysphoria is a sort of unease or a generalized self-dissatisfaction. And everything I'm going to talk about now, this dysphoria runs through it in my life. The things we're going to mention now, that sort of general unease, that, like we said before, not being content, being sort of having that sort of heightened anxiety or nervousness, never really feeling Netflix and chill. So the first thing we're going to mention is a BPD episode. And in some ways, I think this is a confusing term. My feeling is that BPD is a constant roller coaster. I've used the term roller coaster before, and I'm stuck on this roller coaster and just feeling, ups and downs. It's like quite an obvious analogy. And when I hear about BPD episodes, that feels that I'm on a series of rides at Alton Tower with candy floss and Coke in between. And I don't feel like that. I don't feel that it's, shit, I'm having an episode, everything's right in the world. Shit, there's another episode. That isn't how I feel it. It might be like that, but that isn't how I feel it. But why we have to, listen to me. No. why it would be useful to talk about episodes. You're going to keep that in.
Yeah, I am.
It'll come up in a minute. Why I feel it is important to talk about episodes is that they are the bouts of depression and anxiety that put people at most risk.
Yeah. Okay.
80% of those presenting with BPD episodes experience suicidal thoughts and behaviour whilst in the throes of an episode. So this is the thing that we were saying last time about the cutting. Someone with BPD may go to great lengths to feel something, as well as becoming increasingly withdrawn and avoidant during an episode. So the paranoid thoughts of everyone being out to get them and hating them are also common during these times. So an episode is basically extreme reactions, but it can also be extreme highs. So you can get bursts of euphoria. I mean, occasionally when you come to training, I've just been like hyperactive and sort of full of it. So it can be bursts of euphoria and positive emotions. Mm-hmm. But these emotional highs are also episodes of the disorder. It's because it's around the lack of emotional regulation. And there was a phrase we had in the last one where I said, happiness and sadness are interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And it is that with BPD. You can be euphorically happy and crying. Yeah. And the other thing is that risky behaviour is also a symptom of BPD of an episode. So we talked in the kitchen just before to do the prelims for this, and I think it's very clear at the end we just have to go a few coping mechanisms, because if somebody is, and we're going to talk about this scale of 0 to 100, if someone is at 99 on that scale, you and that person have to do everything they can to get to 98, because if you go to 100, you're in trouble. So we will be talking about coping mechanisms. But it's interesting that the risky behaviour increases during the episode. Yeah. And I took this directly. I've got all the links, and this is word for word. Reckless driving and traffic accidents are common, as are impulsive spending and substance abuse. And those, of course, makes the symptoms exaggerated. So this is one of the things we were saying. You can have an episode, you get in your car. One of the things Lewis and I always shared, as you know, when you've seen some of his Insta stories, the constant beep in the car because we don't wear seatbelts, which is ridiculous, really. But it is just, I think that risky behaviour comes much more in an episode, and because your anxiety or your emotions are heightened, you're much more at risk. That is episodes. We will be giving a bit at the end around that. Is there anything you want to sort of...
No, I was going to say if you wanted to, I guess if there's anything specific and there is a relevant point to say without getting into it hugely about treatments or management, then we can mention them as we go. They don't have to be a big thing at the end, but as they come to you, if you think, oh, here's an example, but here's what I do, or here's what I know some people do to cope with that.
Well, maybe
rather than we don't have to have a big chunk of.
Okay, well let's just do it.
I think it's good to have context. If you give an example and go, if you like, if this happened, then these are good things, or things that can work. Not for everyone, but these are things that work for me or for someone else. We don't have to go into the details of.
I get you. Yeah.
If it comes to you, but I won't worry about.
No. I think we just had this discussion, and when I described this to you before, you said that you found it useful when we just said about the 0 to 100. Yeah, definitely. If you have a graph and 0 to 100, 0 being everything content and brilliant in the world, and 100 is like the worst possible place you could be. Mm-hmm. That's on one line, and the other line is time. What tends to happen, and this has come via therapy and also it comes from my own personal experience, is I tend to wake up at about 50 or 60. Anything small that happens that knocks me takes me to 80. So I might see, my first client of the day I might see, and because someone's given me the finger in the car, or because the battery is flat or something like that, and I'm at an 80, if that client does something that upsets me, my reaction to it is going to be a lot more emotional than somebody who maybe woke up at a 20, got a bit pissed off to a 40, but wouldn't stay at a 40 for hours. Yeah,
if you can get someone to I think you said 98, that doesn't sound a lot, but that is better than going to 100, coming that way is much better. But you've also said that you can be operating at an 80 or even 90 for actually quite a long period of time. Yeah. So I was going to say about the episodes, that episodes aren't 5-10 minutes. No. They can be days.
Yes.
They can be weeks, can't they? Or they can be fleeting.
Yeah, one of the phrases that you'll hear me say is this, and I have said this to you before about, I've been told that I fish for suffering. So that if you are in a position where someone has upset you and you're up at 95, there's almost an encouragement within your mind to stay there.
Yeah.
Just keep being hurt because you're still feeling something, still be resentful, still be. So what happens when I'm on a 95 and my third client of the day comes on? I had a client once who, this comes up later, but I'll say it now. I had a client once who was doing weight loss with me. And she said, it's all right for you because you're obsessive. And it was like, where do I go with that? Got a friend of Amelia's in Denmark called Mira, and she uses this phrase a lot. She went, where do I go with that information? When someone says something to you.
What am I supposed to do with it?
Yeah, it's like, what am I meant to say? Yes, I'm obsessive, or does that somehow make me different? Or why is that easier? I still have to, if I'm doing weight loss, it's, not eating calories is the same as you not eating calories. So what we're saying on that graph is to recognize that if someone comes in who's at 90 and you say something to them or spill a cup of tea on them or something like that, they can go to 100 where somebody else might be at 30 and go, their reaction would be a lot more measured. Yeah. And it isn't that tiny incident, it's all the precursors to it. Yeah.
A lot of people listening will be able to understand the disproportionate response to something like the old spilt milk scenario.
Yes.
It's not that thing. It's the 10 things that have just happened up to that point.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think people can relate to that in all sorts of ways.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the things that we talked about last time. And I'm still struggling from when we recorded the last one, and I don't know where this is coming from. I'm still struggling with other people having aspects of my condition and making comparisons. I think people are trying to empathize or go, yeah, I know what you mean, because I'm sometimes like that if I'm really anxious. And it is the same as the condition. But what I want to say is this is 24 hours a day. This heightened awareness doesn't go away. This is the constant roller coaster. And I think people are trying to be sympathetic and empathetic and go, I can feel your pain, which is really positive. But I'm trying to say the way I sometimes present can be disproportionate. And someone can look at me and go, why the fuck did he do that? Why is he being so nasty? Why is he trying to cut me off? Whatever. And so it isn't making an apology or excuse. It's just sort of saying it's around the intensity, I guess. And this is going to lead on to splitting. So one of the things that is common in BPD is that the nuances of the world are completely missing. And we've talked about nuance before a lot. And I think this is similar in some ways to some conditions on the autistic spectrum, that everything tends to be black or white, right or wrong, all or nothing. I've often said to you, I love this person, I hate this person. I can never have content. I can never have middle ground. I don't want ordinary. I've used that sort of language. And this general lack of middle ground means that you're always at one or other state of extreme, either extreme good or extreme bad, in terms of how you're viewing things. So this paradoxical way of life was brought together by a book by Hal Strauss and Gerald Krisman called I Hate You, Don't Love Me. And we referred to it in the first one. We referred to the Demi Lovato song as well. And this I Hate You, Don't Leave Me is splitting.
Right, okay.
And my interpretation is that phrase works for people with BPD and those people who are in friendships or relationships with people with BPD. That's my personal interpretation. And what I mean by that is, as someone with BPD, I know I can be manipulative, I can lie, I can be very harsh with the way I speak, I can make people feel upset and don't feel any compunction at that. And whilst I'm doing all that, my biggest fear is that that person leaves me. So there'll be a tirade of like, blah, 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 blah. And inside my head's going, don't leave me, don't leave me. If anything, I've got to abandon you so you don't abandon me. I got to get in first so you can't hurt me. But I also think that applies to people in relationships or friendships with people with BPD. And I'm guessing there's a few people who knew Lewis, and I've only met him twice in my life. But I can imagine that there's been times when they've just despaired of his behaviour and gone like, I hate you for what you're doing. This behaviour is tiring, or your mood is, draining me. But the don't leave me is that sort of, I don't know, something that extreme behaviour still has a hook on people, that they don't want to desert that person. It's believed to be a self-defence mechanism, so that we can act against feelings of hurt, rejection, or abandonment. Abandonment is massive, and we mentioned about childhood trauma, and a lot of this comes from stuff that happened within childhood. And again, we talked, trauma isn't always about being beaten or being neglected. It can be the way people speak to you, the way people put you down as a childhood, the way people denigrate your self-worth. And so one of the things that they use, which I love this example, is the sort of metaphor of having a devil on one hand and an angel on the other. And I love it when they use it in The Simpsons, and you can see the two sides of a story. And most people have that in their life. So the devil tells you one thing, the angel, and you sit and you listen to them both, and you'll go with who you want to go to. And you'll form a well-rounded assessment of what's right for you. With splitting, only one appears. You don't get any balance. This is why the dialectical part of the therapy is important. So you either hear the devil that says, smash everything, be rude, be disruptive, leave, create a scene.
You don't get the one that go, just think about that for a minute.
Yeah, just take 10.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to end up.
Yeah, your day's going to get a lot busier in the wrong way.
You only listen to one shoulder, if you like.
Yeah.
And so the scientific terms for this are idealization, which is seeing things or people as all good, or devaluation, which is seeing things or people as all bad. And we've talked a lot on the earlier pods, and I would say for people that are interested in BDP and not doing a sales pitch, listening to some of our other pods might still be helpful in some ways, in retrospectively listening to them.
Yeah.
What they say is the symptoms for splitting is it's a pattern of unstable and intense interpersonal relationships characterized by alternation between extremes of idealization and devaluation. And it's these extremes that I feel are tiring for other people, because we can be the most effusive and supportive and empathetic of people, and we can be complete bastards. And I think it must be really tiring to know who's going to walk through the door.
Is it tiring for you?
Yes, because I don't consciously decide. So this disorganized attachment, as it's called, because of these sort of patterns engaging in very close relationships, is linked very much back to childhood. We said in the first one, the link with childhood. And again, it doesn't mean you've been abused in the typical way. There's a whole host of different ways. For the whole of the time I went to school, I've mentioned this, we were talking about my mum, bless her, every day of my school life from the age of whatever it was, 10 to 18, I didn't see my mother for one morning. She was in bed. Now, I think my mother had BPD. Looking back, I'm sure she did. And so I don't feel any vindictiveness towards her. It's only when you start talking about it and looking in this and you go, that was 8 years my mother didn't see me off for school. That was 8 years where she didn't check I was okay. And it's not a massive trauma. She was a good mother. But for 8 years, not to come down to your son and go, have a good day at school and here's your packed lunch, isn't functional in a family where the mother is there. A lot of people don't have parents there, but if your mother's there, it'd be nice to see her. This disorganized attachment has this conflicting fear of and love for the caregiver, and we've mentioned before this aspect with parenting. And so I think that's really what I see with splitting, that it's an either or, and when it's a negative, that other person has to face this tirade of abuse. Although you might love that person more than anyone in the world, they have to put up with how you're demonstrating splitting, and even to the point that it would be, right, that's it, that's over, I'm leaving, I'm going. You don't even want that necessarily, but your fear of being abandoned by someone else means, now I've got him first, they can't leave me. These are the sort of signs that people can see or would be including in splitting. One of them is idealizing certain people from who the person with BDP craves excessive attention, and they view them as special, powerful and free for all. So it's almost like you're a deity. You're worshipped, and you'll also find seeking reassurance from those people that they still love them or care about them or are friends with them. So this is the thing around, someone hasn't texted me for 12 minutes, therefore they hate me. It's like, I haven't texted them for 4 weeks, but, that it doesn't work two ways with BPD. It's like expecting other people to choose sides between the person with BPD and someone the person with BPD devalues. So it's like, if you're friendly with them, you can't be friends with me. So it's seeing people as making a choice, almost as like, that's my person. You can't go off and talk to someone I don't like. We mentioned the strong fear of abandonment. There's extreme closeness, extreme dislike, fluctuating moods, difficulty trusting people, or irrationally fearing others' intentions. We mentioned motives, didn't we, in the first one, when we were talking about the paranoia, and it's like looking at everyone's motives. And we're going to go into favourite person in a moment, but some of the problems are it forms a codependency between the person with BPD and the person they think is perfect, because it puts a lot of pressure on that other perfect, because it isn't a natural relationship necessarily. And this can be random. It can be people that you know from a whole different settings. I think I probably tell you more than I tell most of my friends. I don't think I split with you because I don't think we've had any rage. But I think occasionally I'll come in here after a therapy session and go, bleh, I need to tell you this. And that's the oversharing is a typical BPD thing. So it becomes exhausting for both parties, because I'm constantly needing reassurance from the perfect person. You know, if you have that favourite person that we're going to come into, your expectation is all they'll do is validate you, reassure you.
Yeah.
You almost think, I don't want anything but
positive. And that person's not always ready. No. Their cup might be full up as well.
Once or twice they might go, you're a twat.
Yeah.
Just fuck off, just shut up.
Yeah.
And this phrase, walking on eggshells, I think a lot of people around people with BPD find it. Can I just relax and, watch a film? Why do I have to change every word I said? The person with BPD then ends up having a poor self-image. This can lead to self-harming behaviour because you've seen someone who's hurt, who's crying, or who rejects you because of your behaviour. This is one of the times when it leads to suicidal thoughts or attempts, and the chronic feelings of emptiness, which we mentioned in the last one. It also then leads on, as you can expect, to unhealthy, impulsive or dangerous decision making. And so this goes on the drug use, drinking, the driving especially. Yeah. Although I didn't like this line, this was the line in the report I read. Essentially, it becomes a mechanism that contributes to your self-destruction, even as you use it to cope. And that sums up for me a lot of BDP, that it's underpinned by this self-destruction, this desire to suffer and hurt yourself, and this self-loathing. So this leads to favourite person. And I said to you just now, I've got a little bit of hesitancy on favourite person for two reasons. One is it's not a scientific term. Yeah. In clinical science, it'd be called unstable relationships, idealization, or fear of abandonment. Those would be the terms. But I think it gets used a lot in therapy, the favourite person. And I think for me, favourite person should be favourite people, in terms that I can have an attachment to a person for 30 seconds. And for that moment, that person has, like I said about the person holding the door, I could just look at somebody and feel some sort of connection with them, or think that they would, I don't know, just feel a connection, feel a chemical connection. But it's disproportionate. It isn't based on fact. It isn't based on any knowledge other than I just feel that's my favourite person. And I think just going back to Lewis, I've met Lewis twice in my life, and yet I sort of put him up there in my top 5 friends of all time. And when I saw him, the connection was there. We understood everything. We listened to the same music. So we had everything in common. Yeah. But that wasn't the point. It wasn't having everything in common. It was just, I fell in love with Lewis. And I think favourite person isn't always about falling in love. It isn't always about getting into a relationship. Yeah. It's just having that idealization of another human being that becomes disproportionate. Yeah. There's no scientific work on it at the moment. I think because it's almost seems a little bit sort of anecdotal, colloquial. It's hard.
Sometimes it's
How
beyond,
would you measure it?
It's almost beyond words, isn't it? It's beyond explanation.
Yes.
If it's energy based, it's an energy or something you can't describe, right?
Yeah. And the conundrum that is that when you have your favourite person, they become responsible for your happiness, or they can become responsible for your happiness. So you are then dependent upon them. Yeah. So they have to fulfill a role for you, and there might be a role that they don't even know they're.
Yeah, I mean, codependency is a whole thing on itself. That's a few episodes, isn't it? Just what codependency is when you look it up. Yes, the codependency can happen in a moment. Yes, from nothing to something. Yeah, and it could take 20, 30 years.
From my personal experience, is that the sharing that I do as BTP, which is ironic because it's taken me 69 episodes to say it. I've shared with you some fairly personal stuff, and you're more circumspect about your life in terms of sharing. But I know sometimes I'll walk into the kitchen and go, do you know this happened to me? And sometimes you'll go, you've never told me that before. And I go, oh, I thought I had. BPD people do overshare. That's a generalization, but I think it's a true one. And I don't think what we do is appreciate the pressure that puts on other people. If there's people listening today with BPD, I, for one, have trying to have an awareness that if I offload to somebody, that person has then got to deal with it. Yeah, I'll go, great, it's great. I've told them this happened to me. I can now go have a cup of coffee. But that person then has to, if I'm telling something about abuse or bad treatment, that other person has then got to to deal with that.
I know you well enough for me to admit this, that sometimes you come in and my cup is full, right? And I'm like, no, I don't care.
I've got enough of my own.
But it's like, it's important for me to listen.
Yeah.
I'm going to try my best to hold this. And I think it's the same for, I can't go around expecting that it's going to be that everyone else is going to be absorbing it in the way I want them to absorb it and hold it in the way I want them to hold it, protect things in the way I want them to protect them. But sometimes you just got to park your own shit.
Yeah.
And give someone space to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think
or
that's
read the
kind
room. If I walk in and you're looking like shit, do you know what happened to me when I was 7?
If I'm like, whatever. And I know I normally put the coffee machine on when you start talking.
I can't hear you.
I'm a good lit reader. Yeah. It is important to kind of, don't get me wrong, you're probably going to go, is he faking this? Is he listening?
No,
or is he just watching my lips move? But no, I think it's important to kind of just put your own stuff to. It's difficult to do. Not everyone can do that, but I think I've got the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to show someone that, kind of respect and really, even if you've had a bad day, it's a difficult one. But
there's one other thing that I just need to say, because I'm very aware of this, is that occasionally I've shared stuff with you, not necessarily the deepest stuff, but I've maybe said, an incident that happened. And it's only now when we're having this conversation, I'm thinking something similar might have happened to you. And I've just triggered.
Yeah.
I was mentioning getting beaten at school, like for years and years. For all I know, you were beaten at school and me coming in and going, do you know, for 5 years I was beaten? And you're going, I don't want to hear this because this is bringing up.
Yeah, I don't even want to tell him that it's a thing I don't want to hear about.
Yeah. But how do I stop him? Because he's offloading to me and he's trusting me. And it's then I'm not going. It's like I've got rid of my baggage. It's like get on with the podcast, and you're there going.
It's back to the oversharing. Some people oversharing it in the first 3 seconds of meeting them, whether they have a condition or not. It's just that's what they do. They're open and they're.
But the nuances are gone because if I offload all that on you, I'm not going. Just bite your tongue a minute. Like look at his body language and make sure.
I think you've got to be really aware of what people are bringing to other people's doorsteps.
Yes, yeah. I think that's life in general, isn't it? It doesn't just BPD.
No, absolutely right. Yeah.
So I'm just going to read this bit word for word because I think it's quite interesting. So we've talked about the sort of I hate you, don't leave me. So the bit about the idealization and seeing that person almost, as I say, as a deity that can do no wrong. The don't leave me is that the nature of the relationship generally is very draining. And I've looked back in my life in terms of people that I've been too close with in terms of the favourite person. There's one guy that I can think about and that I've almost destroyed that relationship by being a bit of a twat. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. In retrospect, I could have handled it better because I value the guy, I love the guy. But I don't think I've dealt with it in a good way. But I'm still doing nothing to amend it. So I'm just going to read this word for word. Yeah. So when we get to this, at this point, the relationship may be in trouble. So this is the point where you're so dependent on the other person validating you that if they're going, I'm too tired, just give me a bit of space. So your then favourite person becomes drained and longing for a break.
Yeah.
They find themselves struggling to be reassuring enough because you're always wanting more. And the negative aspects of the relationship have begun to drag them down. So you're wanting more and more affirmation and validation. You've worn them out so much they can't keep telling you how good you are, how brilliant you are, how funny you are, how, whatever.
That make you try harder.
So I'm going, I'm not getting what I want, I've got to push it. Yeah. So it may be best to break off the relationship, but the person with BPD finds himself unable to do so. And then it becomes emotional stalking. So the person with BPD goes, I've got to mend this relationship. So you then cross boundaries, create more tensions, and it's like, you overtry. The last thing the person wants.
You're making it worse by trying to put it right.
Yeah. Instead of saying, let's just take 10, find a bit of space, come back, reset.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I've got to do more. So then your sense of value, if you have the BPD, your sense of value is diminished. All you want to do is then repair the relationship because your self-image is, I've ruined this. The other party might go, I've had enough of this, I'm moving on. So what happens is then your self-image, your self-worth gets destroyed even more. Yeah. And so in future occasions, the need for validation and reassurance becomes even higher.
Yeah.
In the book, I Hate You, Don't Leave Me, it says, although the person may not be consciously aware of this dilemma, he frequently places a friend or relation in a no-win situation in which the other person is condemned no matter which way he goes. And it is that. It's
on my doorstep, and it doesn't matter what I do with it, it's going to end in tears.
Yes.
That's even worse, isn't it? It's not like you can't give it back and it's all cancelled out. It's a poison chalice, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got no option.
You can't do right for doing wrong. And also it's going
like, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
Screw you, man.
And I'm wondering if there's people listening now who are going, I can recognize that I have been that person's favorite person, and just how draining it is. You know, the love for that person could be beyond everything on both sides. You know, people, you know, I know from people that said about Lewis, he seems to have such a massive sense of engagement with so many people, and so many people are just so moved by his presence. But I know from seeing him a couple of times that there's also the other side, that, you know, it's the angel and devil. There can be
There's
times
a duality
when,
of this whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah. One interesting thing is that an individual, the final thing on favourite person, the individual with BPD often tend to emulate the behaviours or the identity or the careers or values of the other person. So you find them in a shift that they'll almost sort of morph into that other person to try and get even more. So they'll do the same hobbies, or they'll read the same books, or they'll like the same things on the telly, or they'll change their fashion sense or whatever to constantly fit in. And again, that can be quite overwhelming. You don't want someone being a mini-me sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the very final thing on this is just, again, the scientific bit. Attention, praise, or love from a favourite person results in intense feelings of pleasure, joy, comfort, and attachment. So when it's good, it's very, very good. While perceived rejection, and that's the interesting word, it's perceived. So the perceived rejection or criticism or disappointment causes intense dysphoria, self-injury, or suicidal thoughts. And that's the bit, the two extremes from the same person can say one thing, and you couldn't be happier. They can say something very similar, but in a different way. And I'm just going to use this example from Adam because he sent it through to me. 5 messages on a phone. Are you free? Yes. Are you mad at me? No. Why would I be mad? I don't know, but the yes sounded angry. And that's like a text discussion that I would have had with someone. Okay, so we've done the splitting, which is sort of linked into the favourite person, because quite often the favourite person will be the person that's at the end of the splitting, but no, not exclusively. You can have splitting, you know, from it isn't there's just one person in your life that you're going to be good or bad to. It can be a whole host of other people. I'm just going to give you an example. This is someone called Jennifer who's written a lot of stuff on the internet. I've got the links for it. She's got about 3 million followers. She's written something that the attachment to the favourite person is outside of your conscious control, and this is the most distressing aspect. The individual with BPD does not choose who they'd like their favourite person to be. They might attach to very different individuals with very different roles, and they're saying here, it might be a teacher, a friend, a celebrity, or a romantic partner. The individual with BPD, this lack of control worsens their sense of autonomy. It's almost, it creeps up on you. It's like, why do I feel that? This is how she acts to people with favourite person. I want to know every little detail of your life, who you are. I constantly ask you if you're okay, to the point of it being annoying. I'll literally become the perfect person for you. Shape-shifting, which I think is really interesting. I'll change to meet what I think you want. I'll grow my hair. I'll wear different clothes. I'll act differently. I get jealous and possessive very easily. I compliment you all the time on how smart and interesting you are, how attractive, how funny, how intriguing, anything and everything, and I'll make sure you know how I feel about you every day. And these compliments are 100% sincere. When I idolise you, you're perfect. I'll tell you I love you at least 30 minutes. And then she's put in brackets, no joke. I will either respond to all of your messages and phone calls immediately, or it'll take me years to reply because I don't want to seem so intense. And I might tell you every detail of everything, even if you don't want to hear it, because you're my favourite person. I want you to know all of my thoughts and feelings. And it's even tiring reading it. You know, it's like...
you were talking about the text message in the last episode. I was like, God, mate, I'm knackered out here, and I'm not the one going through it.
Yeah. And then it says, I'll probably stalk you as a final one.
Yeah.
I think we've got that bit.
Yeah.
And this is the one that made me laugh. And I've sort of hinted at this. If I know you prefer brunettes or blondes, skinny or curvy, guess what I'm about to be? I'll get clingy and I won't want to share you or your attention with anyone else. And I'll get irritable if I don't have all your attention, even if you're working or something. And it's that bit is like, there's no excuse for not, you know. I feel, judged on my own behaviour and on others that I know, that there is a massive hypocritical element to what I'm about to say. Because some of the things that I want from other people, I don't give to them. And it's like, that's the selfishness of BPD. It's like, I have to have this affirmation. You're not going to necessarily get it back from me. And this thing about walking on eggshells is, have I used the right word? Have I responded promptly? Have I done this? sometimes when I was doing with Lewis, I would do things that I wouldn't necessarily always do with other people. So I would change my language, or I would almost mold myself to how I think he wanted to hear things. Whereas I know with other people,
because he was similar, and you know how he's going to react.
Well, I didn't want him to go from the conversation. So so
nothing to do with the fact he had the same condition.
Yes, he had the same condition.
Yeah, but you treating him any differently because of that.
Yes, but I think I do need to say about the hypocrisy of it. I know that my behaviour doesn't meet the high standards that I sometimes demand from others, and so it must be very hard for someone to go, "You've said this, and this is needed. How about you giving some of it back?"
Yeah.
And I think that's where the sort of lack of vision or empathy or nuance comes. It's like, no, I'm just thinking about me.
Yeah.
It can be a very selfish disorder, I feel. You're constantly wanting feeding. Communication and language can take me from a 60 to a 99 instantly. We had a talk in a pod a little while ago about the table of OKs. Amazingly enough, I started writing this today, and for those of you who aren't regular to the pod, the Russian spy has broken her toe, I think jumping out of a helicopter.
I think so, yeah.
She replied to something today, okie dokie. And
I can't. That's on the list.
That's on the list, but it comes under, I think, playful and non-aggressive. Because
it's probably the best. If she's going to put any of them on there, it's probably the best one, right?
And okie dokie, I can't take that other than it's playful. It's a gesture, isn't it? It isn't. But this thing I was reading, and the thing we talked about the 9 different OKs, literally, as we've said before, the letter O followed by the letter K, I just struggle so much.
Yeah. Not all people with BPD are going to have the same reaction to that.
No.
And it's probably not easy to sit here and go, here's how you can, if you recognize that in someone or yourself, here's how you can help yourself or other people to I guess, cope. Follow these 5 steps. I think to not take someone from a 60 to a 90. Right.
There are 5 steps, I guess, because
I gave that wasn't planned.
Yeah, no. I mean, in terms that I could give 5 steps now that would make everyone's lives easier. Yeah. So I'll give you an example. We had a very funny training session on Tuesday. You're going to have to come in with a tape recorder.
Me and you?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
You're trying to remember.
No, you could have been anyone. You might have had a really.
No, you
was
and me.
Good.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah.
But you might have had a better one after. I don't know.
And I mentioned to you the client that had complimented me on the whiteness of my socks.
Yeah, I didn't know whether you wanted to bring that up, but yeah.
No, I'll bring it up.
Okay, fine.
Now, that kept me going for a good 48 hours. Seriously.
What, your socks?
The validation about the colour of my socks.
Right. So did you get the validation on your socks that you wanted? Because that's what you wore. You washed them specially, so someone would compliment you, right?
Yeah, so I washed the same socks again.
That's how depraved this condition gets, right?
I had to dry them in the morning before I went to the session so I could have the same white socks.
Yeah.
And the person...
They were sparkly as well. Sillet bang, was it? What would you use to get them so white? Anyway, sorry, go on.
Anyway, when I saw the person on Tuesday, I think, I decided to mention this and say how the affirmation had made me feel. And her response was, but they were really, really white. And I went, great. And I'm there smiling like a Cheshire cat. Totally disproportionate. Both you and Wayne, and we've had this on the pod, say, I smell, I always come in and I smell nice. Yeah. Every time now that resonates with me as something that gives me validation. And so when we're talking about the 5 steps, they are so simplistic, and I'm sure other people are like this.
Okay.
So one of the things that's happened, and you've done this really well, is in some of your text replies, and other people I know will say, instead of saying okay, will say cool, lovely, great. And if you think about it, if people listening to this don't have BPD, and they say something like, I'm cooking a meal for us tonight. If you can come around at 7, that would be brilliant. Could you bring a bottle of wine? I've laid the table out, it would be great. And then I've got something on Netflix that we're going to watch afterwards. And someone says, okay, that dinner is fucking out the window. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so to me,
I think that's a long text. I mean, it deserves more than an okay, to be fair.
But the response can be a single word. If it's lovely, that's fantastic, great, awesome, any of those. And even if you don't have BPD, it's that sort of validation of what you've just said deserves more than 2 letters. And I think that the article I read was actually saying the brevity of the reply, when people used to put K instead of OK.
I've been guilty of that in the past.
Yeah. And someone said, you might as well just tell them to fuck off, because if all you can do is do one letter, that your time is so fucking vital that you can't put an O in it. Do you know what I mean? And I think all of us would prefer, every single person listening to this, I warrant, would rather have lovely as a response than okay.
Yeah.
So there's step 1. Get rid of okay.
Great.
Right, lovely.
Great.
Right, great.
I'm writing these down. These are good.
Yeah.
It's good. Number 1, right.
The second one, which we'll come on to, is never say the word should. We've talked about that in the States, is now a thing, shoulding. Shoulding, just to give people a very, very brief example of why it is so evocative with people with BDP, is by its very nature, shoulding suggests inadequacy.
Yep.
It suggests that that person knows more than you.
Yeah. It suggests you've missed something and you should know. You should know better. Oh God, I'm doing it.
You should know better. Yeah. That's exactly
it's
it.
Like, did you not see that thing I never told you about?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're that fucking stupid.
Yes.
You didn't read my mind.
Yeah.
It's classic thing with clients.
But it's also
this page should include this. This sentence should include this. Well, how was I supposed to know that?
Yeah.
I'm not telepathic.
No. Or even stuff that isn't as...
Then you're going through emails going, oh God, have I missed something? Have I missed something? Is it me? Because it puts... It's totally loaded, isn't it? It puts all the responsibility and accountability on you. Normally wrongly.
Yeah. And that's very much from a factual business type thing. Yeah. But the prime example that I remember is I had a client, she lost her father during, I think the second lockdown was really... I don't think she was able to see him in hospital. And, it was very, very upsetting. And 2 days later, she came to a session with me. And she basically got vitriol from her friends going, you should not go to training. It's like, you should be mourning. You shouldn't be going and lifting weights. And she came and we chatted and she cried and she lifted some weights and she went, that was the best thing for me. Done, yeah. But as soon as someone says you shouldn't or you should, they're saying my view is superior to yours.
Yeah.
And so... And people know this because I go on about
whatever you do isn't going to live up to my expectations.
Yeah.
For someone in a bad place, that's an awful thing to do.
Yeah. And I think the other thing also that I'm finding, and this is step number 3 or 4, is be very careful with the word why. And I know I go on about language a lot. And the reason...
But it is important. We do have it for a reason. And there are different words for a reason.
Yes. Yes.
Otherwise we'd all just go beep, 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 wouldn't we?
Yeah. And the nuances of those words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think just going back to the should, one of the words you can often replace should with want. Cool. So it could be, for example, the example I've just said, when someone said, you should not go training because you're in mourning for your father's death, you could go, do you want to go training? It's like more of an open question. It isn't having a value judgment, but it's almost raising it. And then you can go, because you might have concerns that person's making a bad choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you can sort of say that in a way that person go, yeah, no, seriously, that's what I want.
Yeah.
And then you can go, that's fine. But if you go, you shouldn't go there, it's almost the end of the conversation. Why it is with why is that for me, and I know maybe with language I'm a little bit too deep, I accept that, is that sometimes why suggests, if I knew the answer to that question, I could have avoided being in this situation. So why do you think you're so emotional? If I could go, the reasons I'm so emotional are this, this, and this, the next line would be, well, fucking do something about it.
Assuming that you don't want to be in that emotional state.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's not always the problem of people in that state. We're into the good and bad of feeling how you feel, right?
Yes. Well,
we've talked about being, melancholic, and
yes,
and then I was going to talk about wallowing when you were talking about the kind of when you're in a 90 and you do everything to stay in a 90 or even push yourself to a 95.
Yeah.
It's wallowing
totally.
Fishing
for suffering.
Yeah, it's and there is solace in a wallow. I think everyone can, and whether that is eating, drinking, binge watching telly or whatever it is, it can be quite soothing.
Yes.
Can't it?
I mean, that was the case that we mentioned, and I mentioned it on the pod when I came up from accountability. Why are you binge eating? I'm binge eating because Lewis has died, and that is my reaction to it.
Yes.
I'm binge eating maybe to do some form of self-destruction. I'm binge eating because it's almost sending a message to myself that I'm not self-disciplined. It might be sending something to me that I'm lacking in self-worth. I know the answers, so asking me why. All I'm going to do is go, this is why. But if someone asks why, it's almost suggesting, if you have the answers, then change it.
And you're not necessarily there asking to be changed.
I'm all right. I'm going to do this for 2 weeks.
It's judgment call, isn't it? It's judgment, just like should. Okay, that's a good one.
The other thing, and you'll resonate with this. This is the last one.
It's only 4. Come on, Mark. Don't let me down.
You mentioned this yourself, and I think this is interesting. So going back to the bit where I'm going, BPD is my problem. I don't want anybody getting in on my ground. It's true. Everybody has things that get their goat. So I might just be saying things. It isn't because I got BPD, but maybe my reaction is higher. So when I was looking for things that people get upset about, there was a thing called The Mighty, a website, and it said 16 weird things people with BPD don't like. It said it weird things. And one of them was people chomping their food or the smell of cinnamon. And I'm going, I don't think these are BPD exclusives. And also calling them weird things probably isn't very helpful. If you're mad, you might not like this.
BPD are weird.
This is one you mentioned, though. We see it a lot on the media, is that when someone's been interviewed and they start it with, so listen, or you need to
Loads
know.
do
or,
it.
Yeah.
Hear it all the time.
Yeah. And it does get said, and it's almost
or
saying...
the little sigh before that.
Yeah.
Have you got a 5? Give me a 5. You can't do that. You can't let us all down with a 4.
Okay. This should have been number 1.
Oh.
Going back to the white socks...
Yeah.
My desire for validation is completely, and I'm saying this just for myself, not for all the other people with BPD, but for me, is completely off the scale in terms that the smallest compliment or the smallest observation will give me disproportionate happiness. So the white socks, it's like, find your white socks. And Amelia's boyfriend, Dean, is very good with this. He will say something.
He's a white sock king, isn't he?
He is. I mean, he smells better than me. He's as fresh as they
I've
come.
only met him once, and this room was full of him and his musk. It was
he outdid your diffuser, didn't he?
Oh, you'd pay him to come around and just
sit.
Freshen the place up a little bit.
Just rub himself on the sofa. No, but Dean is very, very good at those comments of, you're looking good, I like your beard, nice top, you look good in that. And it isn't throwaway. You know it's sincere, but it's constant. It's something he does very well. And every time we have a little text, he'll just chuck something in. So that's it. Think of the white socks. Think of the clean white socks. And tomorrow... Compliment
69 pods ago, Mark. Remember all those pods ago? The very first episode we were talking about compliments, weren't we? If everyone could just give one compliment, how many compliments would you have in a day?
One. You meant the whole population, didn't you?
No, I think it's a good.
Just going back on the should.
Cost anything.
This is the interesting one. They did the should best sellers.
Right.
That people say. So you should be grateful to be alive. You should forgive. You should be compassionate. You should meditate. You should declutter. You should take more trips. You should appreciate what you have. You should spend more time with your kids. You should have more fun. You should spend less time on technology. And I'm thinking, those all come up on a daily basis.
They do.
You shouldn't spend so much time on your phone. You should spend less time. You should eat differently. You should.
You shouldn't do listicles beginning with should.
And it's like, you should laugh more. That was one of them. Like, fuck that. That didn't going to happen.
You should fuck off. Right. Right. We're probably have to wrap up, Mark.
I think so.
Is this Jerry Springer summary monologue?
It's just 3 little one-liners.
Cool.
If I seek validation, disagreement is rejection. Even if the other person is right, if they disagree with me, all I hear is rejection. That doesn't mean that the other person has to continually conform to my views. But they have to understand that disagreeing with me will take me to a position where I'm going, they're rejecting me. Yeah,
because it's also quite unhealthy to kind of, I guess, put people or things in cotton wool, right? Or wrap the eggshells, right?
You need to shout at people
because that could It's a sensitive and considered shouting, isn't it? And understanding. It is difficult to get the balance right. You talked about balance right at the very beginning.
Yeah.
No, you can try and go a little bit too softly and make things worse.
Exactly.
Or just you got to be bold and brave and approach it head on.
You got to be bold and brave.
I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me? Why are you reacting to that?
Yes.
I think anyone would just appreciate the time to explain why they react in a way.
But I think if you understand that the person has taken it on board in a different way that you meant it, it's that communication at the beginning of a discussion. And I also wrote here, I mean, the last 3 things is I said, I can't believe when people don't agree with me. And I do. I have a certain feeling of if I state something, I don't mind.
Like on the pod when I'm talking and you guys, can we just move on? Can we just move on? Or you don't want to talk about this much? No, can we just move on? Bored. What you got next?
Or when we talk about the moon landings and you think it might have been possible that they happened.
Yeah, exactly.
See, Lewis was with me on that one. I have put down Lewis and conspiracy theories. We might have a special on that because he outdid me, bless him. And the final thing, and this is my piece of magic. This is for those of you who have got through the 57.5 minutes, just a prediction of how long this will be.
And the rest. Yeah.
Okay, so this is my summary. This is my takeaway. And I feel really happy about this.
Okay, good.
Me. I've done this. You. Great. The end.
What?
Mic drop. See, all the people with BPD are going, yes, amen, brother, I know what you're saying. And you're going, twat.
No, I'm
Okay.
I left a gap because I'm sure that's going to be brilliant and I'll hear it back and it'll be genius. So I didn't want to steamroller it.
Okay. I'll give you an example. So I've done this.
Yeah.
You say great.
Great.
The end. That is perfection for BPD.
Okay, great.
So if I come in today, how's your day been? I managed to do 40 minutes weights. Great.
Great.
That's it. That's finished. We move on. I come in today. I've done 40 minutes weights. Did you not? Were you a bit rushed today and couldn't do an hour? Fuck off.
Yeah, I think it warrants a fuck off.
No, but even something that wasn't made, or
that kind of length of conversation would suit me down to the ground as well. I've got time for any now.
I think sometimes if it's as simplistic as that, and it goes back to the affirmation, it's about
the language, it's being concise, isn't it? So I'm pointing a pen at you.
That's okay.
Because I've got a really good point, literally.
Yeah.
The language is important, getting rid of ambiguity.
Exactly. It's exactly that point.
And distortion,
it's exactly that
isn't
point.
it?
Because if you say
Keeping
more
it
than
simple.
2 words,
Simple isn't
I will
okay.
find a problem with one of them.
Simple isn't okay, but simple is, that's lovely, or look forward to seeing you.
Yes, it takes, exactly as you say, it takes away the ambiguity and it doesn't give my mixed up mind the opportunity to beat myself up. If you go, I've done this, great. All I can do with that is go, that's validation.
Yeah.
So any other words would just give me somewhere to deep dive.
That's it for this episode. Well done for getting this far, and thanks for listening. Give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at I'mFinecast, and send your feedback and ideas to imfinecast@gmail.com. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and please do spread the word to those who you think might like having us in their ears. In the next episode, part 3, final part, Mark, where we'll be looking at support and treatments.
Yes.
For BPD. Yeah. And again, a mixture of kind of first-hand experience and some of the tools and references that you, Mark, have found invaluable over the last few years, and other things that other people have come across as well. And
just a shout out for what you always say at the end of these. I really, really, really do appreciate the people that are DMing me, and I can, like I said right at the beginning, I can understand why they're DMing me rather than just sending it to a generic email. But we honestly really want to help people. That is our purpose. And there's been more tragic news in Bristol today come out with a young person from the university. I just think it's that if there's anything that we can do to help, literally just send a text, or if there's a question you want answered, or if you just go, I can't wait for next week to hear about treatments, can you just give me an address, or can you tell me about mindfulness, anything. Literally just reach out, and if we can point you in the direction of someone that can help, I'm more than happy to do it. Yeah, we can. Nice one. Okay, so we'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Yeah, bye-bye.